Hello and welcome to the history of Babylon 5. Today we're going to be covering the Interstellar News Network, also known as the ISN. And here we go. Interstellar Network News, or ISN, was an Earth Alliance news network broadcasting from Geneva on Earth, clear to the outer colonies via tachyon relays. With reporters assigned to areas throughout space, the network was able to learn about events without having to wait for official press releases, and in some cases were tasked with creating their own news routine for local markets. As of February 2260, ISN won 6 Platinum Nebula Awards. Mary Ann Kramer was assigned to Babylon 5 during its first 2 years of operation. ISN also produced news segments specially targeted to the station residences that were broadcast across the station monitors and available in the residences. The station's news program broke the story about the Senate approving the use of the Rush Act against the illegally striking Dockers Guild in 2258. ISN reported on President Luis Santiago's 2258 trip to Babylon 5, noting the possibly controversial statements he made there, calling on more collaboration between Earth and the other races. ISN reported on the Mars resistance riots on Mars. ISN was live broadcasting on New Year's Eve in 2258, when Santiago was supposed to be giving a speech on New Year's Eve from the transfer point off Io. During the delay, anchorwoman Jane tried to recap the expected talking points when Earth Force One suddenly exploded, startling the newscaster and filling her with emotion. On September 16, 2259, ISN produced one of their 36-hour series on Babylon 5, providing a view of many of the issues being discussed on Earth. It was hosted by Cynthia Torkman and was sponsored by Interplanetary Expeditions. Torkman had interviews with many of the staff and ambassadors. Important stories on ISN in 2260 included a recording of a strange alien ship in hyperspace, which was used to argue for stronger Earth security, and evidence of allegations of Clark being involved in a conspiracy to assassinate Santiago, which he characterized as an unfounded plot against him. As President Morgan Clark consolidated power, ISN began to censor any viewpoint contrary to those of Clark and his administration. Terror attacks against Earth Alliance forces were not shared to prevent others from taking similar actions elsewhere. When martial law was invoked, troops headed to ISN headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. Anchor Jane was joined by Rick, who reported on the incoming shock troops, the bombing of Mars, and the succession of Proxima 3 and Orlan 7 from the Earth Alliance. He told viewers that there was more information, but they hadn't been able to tell them. At that time, military forces stormed the station and shut down the broadcasts. ISN returned months later, but was a mouthpiece for Clark's propaganda. The previous anchors were arrested and were replaced by new ones. Allison Higgins was the head anchor at this time, replacing the longtime anchor Jane. Under the government's control, ISN became a propaganda machine employed to defend the government's xenophobic policies and destroy the public image of opposers and dissidents. The network did continue to promote real news, including the announcement of the travel restrictions to Babylon 5. ISN reporter Dan Randall headed a news crew to smuggle in recording equipment and to covertly record events taking place on the Renegade station after it declared itself a separate state from the Earth Alliance. Expecting resistance, the equipment was crated and not declared to custom officials, who were then forced to open the crates for inspection. Captain Sheridan agreed to allow the crew aboard to produce their report and asked Lanier to be their guide, in an effort to try to appear transparent. Sheridan was confident that any statements he made were short, to the point, and would be difficult to take out of context, and had a general good feeling about the time. However, the broadcast version did not air that way. Randall and his editors recorded additional segments that included questions not asked in person, then played clips from real interviews to create false statements in a direct attempt to mislead the public. They portrayed Lanier's tour as if aliens were in control of the station, and prominently displayed down below sections as though they were the only place humans lived aboard the station. stating that the rest of the place was reserved for aliens, dignitaries, and renegade human crew. Randall even went to the extreme to ask psychologist William Indery to make judgments based on the altered portrayal. He then completed his segment talking about a fire at the Sheridan Ranch, home to Sheridan's parents, and stated that his father was still missing. Quote, "Our job is to report the news, not make it or guide it," end quote, and make editorial commentary. This news story was even replayed on ISN for all our viewers in Grid Epsilon, likely repeating to antagonize the residents of the station and remind the locals of the alleged atrocities. Follow-up stories included the news agency receiving messages reportedly smuggled out of Babylon 5, reporting that the humans remain under cruel oppression and how the public opinion was placing pressure on EarthGov to take action. To counteract ISN, Babylon 5 started broadcasting the voice of the resistance. Since ISN had become unreliable, people had to look for other sources for information. Members of the resistance on Mars and Earth would smuggle out data crystals to keep others informed of real events. Several religious leaders traveled to Babylon 5 to inform Sheridan and others with the news they collected. Once Clark committed suicide and the reign of terror was over, the anchors were released from jail and returned to their former jobs. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Babylon 5. Have a great day. Bye-bye.